Welcome to Funeral Facts with Deacon Marc. We have talked about a lot of different things over the last couple of weeks, the last couple of months, and today and then the next session we want to talk about two things that are related. Why should I have my remains interred in a cemetery? And then two, why should I have my remains interred in a Catholic cemetery? And so we'll take each of those separately in two different sessions, so today we'll talk about why should I have my remains interred in a cemetery. So just to get it right off the bat, we don't often have conversations about whole bodies being buried in the backyard or in anywhere else at this point in time. Typically a traditional burial happens in a cemetery. So for the most part, when we're talking about why should we be buried in a cemetery or interred at a cemetery, we're talking about cremated remains. And so I want to talk about three different areas: the security, the psychological, and then the spiritual. And then all three of those pieces go into the big overarching piece of the whole thing of respect for the body. And so let me talk about each one of those pieces separately so that we can give you some insight into why the church says, yes, you should be interred in a cemetery. So let's start with security. Was recently watching the news, and on the news was a lady whose house was burglarized, robbed, and the people took many different things: TV, money, jewelry, and this pretty vase that was left on top of the mantle. It wasn't a vase, it was an urn. And they were on the news asking for their loved one back. So one reason why to be interred in a cemetery is for that safety and security of your loved one, that they're in a place that is safe and secure for their loved one to be laid for eternal rest. Then it brings into the psychological. It helps the grieving process. I was talking to a pastor who often has people coming to them and saying, hey, I've lost my loved one X number of years ago, and I'm still really grieving. Is that normal? And he always asks the question, was it the person buried traditionally in a casket, or was the person cremated? And then he asks the question, every time he asks the question, where are the cremated remains? He gets the answer, they're in the house somewhere. And so there's a direct tie between being able to go through the grieving process and then also having those cremated remains, the remains of a loved one in a cemetery. It gives you that break, that change to realize life is changing. I know we all want to hold on to our loved ones, but having that person in the cemetery still allows us to go and visit them, but also realizing that life is changing. And then the third piece is the spiritual side of it. Spiritually, when we place our loved one into a cemetery, whether they're in a casket going into the ground, in a mausoleum, whether it's cremated remains, when we close that door, when we lower them into the ground, when we cover them up, we are at that committal. We're also saying, God, I turn this loved one over to you. I give this person to you. And so we're spiritually saying, I'm trusting in God, I'm having that hope in God. And so all that comes down together. If you take all three of those components together, it really is about respecting the body that is created in the likeness and the image of God. And so why do we do all those things? Out of respect for the body. And so there is very good reason why we want individuals to be interred, placed, buried into a cemetery, spiritually, for security-wise, and for psychological reasons, and overall for the respect of the body. It does make a difference. That is this week's Funeral Facts with Deacon Marc. You have a good week, and God bless you.